The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show. A presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free. Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
All righty, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. We have a lot coming up on the program. Stat of the day. Also, we will have this day in Tennessee sports history. Jacob Warren joins us. Usually he's on a Monday, but the Warren Report will be on a Tuesday today. John Adams will join us as well. We've got a lot to get to, including GRUMORS. Yes, GRUMORS. And I'm going to share something with you here in a bit about John Gruden that I think is something you need to hear, because I'm not so sure that there's not going to be another set of GRUMORS crop up in the SEC. Also, why Arkansas's offense is better than you think. We'll discuss that with John Adams, and we'll revisit the topic from yesterday with John that we discussed briefly. After watching the Alabama-Georgia game, is Tennessee going to be one, both, or none? So we'll have that coming up. A lot to get to on the program. I start with this. Caleb Calhoun, how are you, sir?
Good, Dave. Happy first day of October.
Here we go.
Yeah, and really sad day in sports yesterday, if you think about it. I mean, two legends passed away. Pete Rose and Dikembe Mutombo both passed away.
Yes, that was very sad. I can't tell you the number of times that Pete Rose would save a talk show host like me in a football-based town in June with nothing to talk about. Remember, that wasn't really recruiting time back then. The baseball team wasn't anything. But if you wanted to just go ahead and throw it out there, should he be in the Hall of Fame? Instant show. Just take calls. Boom, boom, boom. By the way, we want to hear your comments online. And rest in peace to Dikembe Mutombo as well. Still the best story about Dikembe Mutombo. And I mean this with all due respect. It was shared on social media yesterday when he was on an ESPN show, the one that had Stu Gottlieb and Dan Le Batard. And the legend was he would walk into clubs and he goes, "Who want to sex Mutombo?"
Really?
And hit like and subscribe if you like that pickup line. Walking into the club, "Who want to sex Calhoun?"
It'd be really funny if one of the ladies said, "Not in my house." But
yes, go ahead.
hot take: Dikembe Mutombo was more valuable to that Sixers team that made the finals than Allen Iverson was. He was more important to the team.
I don't think it's a hot take.
I'm glad you agree with me.
Yeah,
Allen
I don't think
Allen
that's...
Iverson's the most overrated player of all time.
That's idiotic. But anyway, let's go ahead and get to four downs. Four downs today, brought to you by our great friend at Banks & Jones, T. Scott Jones, Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. The poll question is what?
Yeah, so the poll question, and I think people were a little confused at first. They thought I was talking about former Vols in the NFL, but I was very clear. Do you want to bury former Vols on other teams? And the answers are yes, disloyalty should be punished, or no, wish the best for athletes.
Okay, well, I want to get your thoughts on that. Four downs brought to you by Banks & Jones. Right now, like and subscribe, Off the Hook Sports.
Four downs. Four questions. Four answers. The Dave Hooker Show. Four downs. A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
Okay, Caleb, here we go. Do you want to bury former Vols that are playing on other teams? Now, that's going to be the case this weekend with Danico Slaughter, a defensive back for the University of Arkansas. Also potential to beat the you-know-what out of Gerald Mincey at Kentucky. So we shall see. Now, let's get it started with the one, the only Cooper Mays. And do we have a clip of the Squirrel White clip on what he said yesterday, Caleb?
I don't have the clip, but I have the quote.
Okay, roll with the quote right now.
So Squirrel White was asked and basically said, I don't think anybody has talked to him. We're just going to see him when we get there. But it was very, shall we say, a tone of bitterness when he said it. Is that fair to say?
He had a smirk. The fact that they hadn't talked to him makes me think one thing. First,
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
All right. What down, Coop?
Coop here. First down.
All right. Is there extra motivation for the Vols when they go against former players on other teams?
I think there is, if those Vols did certain things to trigger them. And I guess the best example is people are bringing it up on the message boards of Gerald Mincey. Gerald Mincey didn't just transfer. Gerald Mincey transferred and then just started trashing the program after that. So I think there's extra motivation there. I think there may be an extra motivation for a Tyler Barron who was somewhat of a cancer on the defensive line last year and then demanded more money, thought he was better, went elsewhere and ended up going to Miami. I think in those instances, there is extra motivation. But again, I say this as someone who was never a player, but I do believe there's a camaraderie among all players across all different teams and certain types of friendships. And Dave, you know that. So I don't know if it's, I think more often than not, it's still, oh, hey, how you doing? Good to see you. How are things? How's life?
I would have thought so before that Squirrel White comment yesterday. And I'm going to bring up the C word, which you don't like, and that's culture. So I feel like if you bail, that these guys really don't like you, legitimately don't like you. Typically, I would have agreed with you before I heard Squirrel White yesterday. I think some of this is personal. What down is next, Coop?
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
All right, second down is this. Do the opposing players have extra motivation? Well, heck yeah. Danico Slaughter does not want to get beat by Squirrel White, and the two will line up against each other on Saturday because Danico Slaughter has slid into that nickel role for the Razorbacks, who I've been told are getting much healthier in their secondary. So in particular, right there, Slaughter doesn't want to get shown up by Squirrel White and embarrassed, which he very well could, because even though this secondary is healthier, I don't think they're that great at 100%.
Yes, I agree. I think Danico Slaughter would somewhat take it personally. But I think part of the reason he might take it personally is because Dave, I mean, he might have been forced out or he might have been nudged out the door. And wouldn't you have an extra motivation if you were nudged out the door to come back and maybe prove your coach wrong that basically said you couldn't start? I mean, You and I both know that.
Go ahead.
You and I both know that Rick Clausen was very, 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 he saved his one good game of his life for when he went back down to Baton Rouge and was put back in the second half.
You say nudged out the door, which I don't want to get too sidetracked, but that's what everybody says, every team, every program, when players leave. Oh, they didn't really want him. And we thought that was the case with Danico Slaughter. Have we been proven correct given what Tennessee has done in its secondary? Do you feel certain with Ricky Gibson and Jermod McCoy, and then whoever is playing at the nickelback, which could have been Danico Slaughter, so Boo Carter, Christian Harrison now, do you feel certain that Danico Slaughter was pushed out the door? Because I now, seeing what I have seen, believe that. There was like a 10% of me that questioned it before I've seen Tennessee's secondary play particular corner.
Yes, I believe he was pushed out the door. I'm going to take it a step further, and this may be topic for another day. The whole reason all the secondary, because Tennessee had a wave of 11 transfers in the secondary last year, and then they got all these guys who are better, most notably Jerron McCoy and Jacoby Thomas, both playing great football right now. Tennessee was tampering midseason last year. They already knew who, I'm just going to say this, Dave, up front. They knew which players they were going to land before they shoved other defensive backs out the door. They knew who was coming in, which they weren't supposed to. But they did.
Interesting. All right. What down, Coop?
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. Third down.
Will it affect play at all? Yes or no, Caleb?
I think if it affects play, it affects it in a negative way. Honestly, not in a positive way. I think he gets
Tennessee or Arkansas.
Both. I think Squirrel White and Danico Slaughter, if they're both taking this personal, it will affect them both in a negative way. I think Squirrel White will be kind of pushing to try to get the ball to make a point, and I think Danico Slaughter may be going out of his way to lay a tackle that he shouldn't lay, whether there's not playing assignment football. Look, football's not basketball. We know the whole Last Dance, Michael Jordan. I took that personally. You can do that in basketball where you can demand the ball and then just take over a game. You can't really do that in football, though, right, Dave? You got to play assignment ball no matter where you are on the field. And so taking things personal, you can't just choose to all of a sudden become the focal point of a defense or an offense in that regard.
No, you don't want to play out of character, but I think it's an advantage to know a player's weakness. So, for instance, in this particular game, I think it's Tennessee's advantage to know Danico Slaughter's weaknesses because they know him as well as Sam Pittman at Arkansas does. So I think they know what he does well and what he doesn't, and they'll be able to exploit that. So not from an emotional standpoint, just strictly an X's and O's standpoint, Caleb, I would argue that it will affect play on Saturday.
I mean, I could say it would affect play. I just don't think it'll affect it in a positive way. That's where I'm at with it.
You don't think if Josh Heupel knows that, hey, Danico Slaughter doesn't cover the dig route well, that they're going to run the dig route more often in the slot?
Oh, so from an yes, he knows that. No, that's a very good point. Okay. No, I can get with you on that. Okay. That's how it will affect play.
All right, let's get to fourth down. It's the best down, and it's represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. banksandjones.com.
SEC center Cooper Mays here. Fourth down.
Should either side feel any bitterness in this NIL age?
And I'm going to break with a significant portion of our viewers who have voted. But no, provided the split was amicable. And what I mean by that is, again, Gerald Mincy, you should feel all the bitterness in the world at Gerald Mincy. He has no business to...
Wait, Tennessee should feel that, not
yes.
Gerald Mincy should feel that.
Yes, Tennessee should feel it. Tennessee should feel it. Gerald Mincy has gone out of his way to talk about Tennessee in a way that I think is very unbecoming of a former player. But most of the time, no. And I say that because players have to think about their future. It's an age of NIL and the transfer portal. It's also an age where players are oftentimes nudged out. And I go back to, and everybody in Knoxville has hated me for this, but I don't think it was fair for Tennessee fans to despise Henry To'oTo'o the way they did when he transferred out of Tennessee. I mean, he committed to play in a system with Jeremy Pruitt as a linebacker that was a fit for him. Pruitt was fired, and you didn't know who was coming. It made sense for him to go to Alabama where he could have been an immediate impact player. He's thinking about his future. I can't really blame him for that any more than I can blame Dave coming out of high school when Cade Mays decided to commit to Georgia. People can be mad about that, but that was the last year of Butch Jones when Tennessee was 4-8. How can you expect him, just because he's a legacy kid, to commit to Tennessee? This is no different than, I'm going to be honest, guys, it's no different than thinking Ole Miss is somehow justified in being mad at Peyton Manning for committing to Tennessee. They're not, and they never were. Okay, these players are, I'm sorry, but they're not, I don't want to sound like weirder. Fans are not your property. They get to go where they want to go.
What do you mean bitterness from a fan base? I'm talking about the team, Caleb.
I don't think the team should feel it either. I don't think the team should feel it. The team should know that first off, they know more than we do if players were shoved out the door.
Listen, I'm gonna feel bitterness for if I'm a Tennessee player after all that I've put in for you. I'm gonna feel bitterness. We've gone to war together. We've done all this. If you decide to go to another team for a couple of more dollars, I'm gonna feel bitterness. If I'm Danico Slaughter and I was pushed out the door, I'm gonna feel bitterness. There's no question in my mind, Caleb, that emotions are at play, that Danico Slaughter has had this game circled, and and Tennessee perhaps has it circled to play Kentucky because of the way Gerald Mincey walked out the door. So, no, these are young men. I think you're looking at this from a professional perspective, and they are getting paid. But to me, there's no question in my mind that there is going to be bitterness on one side or the other. Before we get to the groomers, Caleb, if you can address that, because I don't know of many splits that are amicable. I mean, I've unfortunately had a lot of friends who've gotten a divorce. Usually one side gets the short end of the stick.
Yes, splits are usually not amicable. That is very true. I get what you're saying.
I mean, Caleb, if I said, for instance, Peyton Manning has called me and said that he wants to co-host the Dave Hooker Show, and I said, Caleb, you realize I have to do this. I mean, you would not be happy.
I would not be happy, but could I be bitter? Like, I mean, could I be mad at you?
I would be bitter if I were you.
Okay, what if I get that? And yes, I would hate it.
You've invested a lot.
I've invested a lot of time in this.
Yes.
But okay. Say you're roommates with Danico Slaughter, and Danico comes to you and say he chooses to leave, and he's like, look, man, I know who they're bringing in. I'm just never going to play, and I got to think about my future. And, I'm not going to get a chance to play. And Arkansas is giving me a chance to play. I just can't sit. It's not good for me to sit here and ride the bench for 2 years when I'm never going to see the field.
Listen, I'm not disputing anything you're saying. I'm just telling you, they're human beings, and emotions are at play.
But we're saying, should they be? Should you feel bitter at Danico Slaughter if he chooses to do that?
No, but Danico Slaughter should feel bitter because he was forced out. Yes, you should certainly feel bitter now that you're talking. I mean, listen, that's the way the game's played now. In the old days, you'd hear me ripping Josh Heupel if he forced a guy out, because the scholarship used to be a year-to-year contract on the university side, but yet you were beholden to have to sit out a year if you transferred to the school for 5 years. So no, I would be very bitter if I was Danico Slaughter and I thought I was forced out the door because this guy named Ricky Gibson might be a little bit better than me. There's no question in my mind. Portions of the program brought to you by the Hemp House. I tell you what, the Hemp House is the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards to ensure you only receive the best in CBD or adult products. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Use the promo code HOOK for 10% off. HOOK for 10% off. HempHouseChat.com. And now I'm going to make what may seem like an absurd argument, but I mean it. What the H? Brought to you by Medicare Mystic.
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
So I'm listening to a national program, and they have John Gruden on, which I thought was very interesting because that's the first he's gone public since he was fired by the Oakland Raiders amidst all kinds of homophobic and racist emails that portrayed him as just an overall bad dude. And his message was very clear, and there is a reason why he went on a national show and faced the music. He got asked the hard questions about who leaked the emails, where's the lawsuit stand, and of course he says, I'm just here to talk football. So he got those out of the way. But he's doing his football coaching academy or whatever he calls it, and he's asked, would you like to coach again? Now, let's start with this. There is no way he's ever going to get hired in the NFL. Correct, Caleb? Because you got 32 guys who are in charge of it. The NFL, for whatever reason, decided they despised him, and they're not going to ever hire him again. Correct?
I don't think he's ever. I mean, didn't he also sued the NFL, didn't he?
Yes,
Which
and
is like
he's doing the NFL. So he wants to coach again. So that leaves college and high school. Okay, well, let's take high school out of the equation. Let's go with college. So he's definitely tainted goods, correct?
Correct.
But he's a very good coach and a big name. And he also expressed how intriguing he thought the NIL and transfer portal were. Correct?
Correct.
University of Florida should hire John Gruden. They should. And there's a couple of reasons why, but I want to get your take initially before I make that argument.
I think you're insane. Here's why, and okay, here's why I think you're insane. One, there's a few reasons. Obviously, there's just the whole cloud of scandal over him, which will make it hard for him to build relationships that may be necessary. But on a larger scale, Dave, NIL and transfer portal has only increased the amount of attention and work coaches have to do on the recruiting trail and with connecting with players. John Gruden always hated recruiting. That's why he never wanted to go back to college. Never.
No, but I would argue that the recruiting would not be nearly as difficult with NIL and with the transfer portal.
Let me tell you what. Yes, but John Gruden is not built for college for this reason. Even if it's to a lesser degree, here's the problem with John Gruden. And I'm going to tell you guys exactly what it is. And we've all had friends that are like this. So let me just break this down real quick. Sometimes my wife does this, and I'm throwing her out. But no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding, Jordan. Don't get mad at me. But y'all know your friends and maybe girlfriends or wives or people like that want you to court them and ask them to like do something with you. So like they want to do it, but they don't want to commit to doing it because they want you to ask them to do it. They want you to beg them to do it because they like to be begged. Does that make sense?
Sort of. Keep going.
John Gruden likes to be begged. He likes to be courted. He likes to be the person that you approach.
Okay, no, I agree with that. I agree with that. And he was never going to coach at Tennessee. I do agree with what you said on recruiting in the previous evolution of football, changed since. And I also agree that he liked to be courted, and he was never going to come to Tennessee. I know that there were people running around with cameras at McGee Tyson Airport and all that sort of thing, but I can tell you, he did enjoy being flirted with, but now he wants a job. That's the difference.
I'm saying even if he wants a job, he wouldn't work at Florida or in college because his desire to be courted goes the other way. People who have that type of ego of wanting to desire to be courted, you want to know what repulses them? Having to court someone. College is all about having to court people. You are asking people to come to you. You are asking people like, hey, can you please come help me? Can you please come play for me? Can you please come do this? That is so anathema to John Gruden. He wants to be the guy, and this is how he was in Tampa, to say, I'm the coach. I know ball. You're lucky to play for me. I'm not going to ask you to come play for me. You're lucky to be in my presence. There is no way that mentality is going to work at the college level. It's just not. And it never has. The only time it ever worked was Steve Spurrier, and that worked in the 90s. But Dave, I'm going to be honest with you. I think Steve Spurrier is a heck of a lot better play caller than John Gruden is.
I think Steve Spurrier is an overall better head coach. I mean, I think John Gruden is fool's gold to a large extent. I thought that when he was flirting with Tennessee, sure, he won a Super Bowl, but that team was put together by Tony Dungy, and they were absolutely loaded. He didn't have much success with the Raiders, but I'm telling you, if they did that, it would make a splash. He would be able to manipulate NIL and the transfer portal and get people excited if everyone can forget the most important fact that we haven't really discussed yet, and that is all the racist and homophobic things that he said in emails. So that's the big issue, right, Caleb? I want your thoughts. What the H brought to you by Medicare Misty.
19 years this year. Well, I've been in the community since 1993. You're getting a lot of information. Unlike when you were working, they made the choice for you. Now you have to make the choice. Come to us and let us help you make it easy. Call Medicare Misty, MedicareMisty.com or 423-777-5577. Let us help them sleep at night.
And we call her Medicare Misty.
Okay, poll question split 50-50. Should Florida hire John Gruden? Yes, best hire they can make. No, he's a dork. That's pretty cut and dry. You have to choose one side or the other. The big question is, the 800-pound elephant in the room is, could he overcome all that came out in that email scandal with players? Could he look African-American players in the eyes and potential homosexual players in the eyes and have their respect? That's the big question, right?
Yes, I think here's the thing. You can do that if you have the chops and the resume and I guess the acumen as a football guru to overcome it. Now, you think he's overrated as a guru. You don't think he's that much of a guru. So
agreed, but I think that's the best that Florida could do. Kind of like when Tennessee had to hire Jeremy Pruitt. That's the best they could do.
Well, no, they could have gotten Mike Leach at the time, who would have been better than Jeremy Pruitt. But
he would have been better, but I still don't think that's a slam dunk coach. As a matter of fact, I think that's the coach that does very similar record-wise that as Butch Jones would have, and that's get you to 9 or 10, but never get you over the hump. Rest his soul. That's what I mean. I think there's a ceiling there.
I think you're probably right, but still would have been better than Pruitt. But what I was going to say with John Gruden was that let's look at right now. I mean, we have a case study on this. Now, he's not winning and performing well, but in terms of recruiting, look at Hugh Freeze at Auburn. I mean, terrible person, absolutely got caught lying to his players. And it's out there that 10 years ago, he lied and trapped his players into signing with Ole Miss, knowing these violations were come, lied to them about the violations coming, framed Houston Nutt for them so the players would be forced to sign with him. And he did that because he wanted to make sure that they would be stuck with the program after the violations came down. And yet he still got a top 10 recruiting class at Auburn right now. I mean, he's still doing fine at Auburn. So recruiting wise, not on the field. We can talk about that because he ain't doing fine on the field. But like that, where I'm getting with that is that, Dave, when you take that into account, it's really hard for me to look seriously at the idea that any sort of baggage like this actually matters. I guess the one thing I would say is maybe with John Gruden, he didn't have the resume that Hugh Freeze had as an offensive genius. And that's where I say I don't think they should hire him. I think they could get Lane Kiffin. I think they could get Deion Sanders. And I think both would be better than John Gruden.
Oh, Deion Sanders wouldn't be better. Come on.
I think Deion Sanders would be better than John Gruden. Deion Sanders would recruit better. He would recruit.
Okay, it sounds like I'm arguing with myself here, but I'm going to say this. I actually think, and we'll ask Jacob Warren, the Warren Report coming up here momentarily, but we'll ask Jacob Warren about this in just a second. I actually think that what Hugh Freeze had to overcome in his background of all the sexual malfeasance is more difficult to overcome than John Gruden and his racist stance. As far as in the culture of a team, I actually think that the latter, Gruden's, would be more difficult.
It's not the sexual prowess. It's it's snaking players and trapping them into a recruiting class that he knew was going to be bad.
All of the above. I still think the terminology he used in some of those emails, I'm totally recruiting against him. And I'm not going to say it because I've said this before. I don't think you go in and say, hey, I'm recruiting for school X. School Y is terrible. But I think you accidentally leave some clippings or email some clippings from an anonymous thing about how John Gruden used many racist terms and homophobic terms. But anyway, getting back to the point, Florida is in such a mess right now that they're not going to have the pick of the litter. Can we agree on that?
No, I don't, because I think as much of a mess as it is with Florida State and Miami stuck in the ACC, Florida could be the easiest job in the country, no matter how incompetently run they are.
But what I have learned from Tennessee, you have to have the administration in place. And right now they've got to fire an AD as well. So you don't know who your boss is going to be, really. We got a lot to get to. Jacob Warren join us. Sorry, Jacob, running a little bit late. I see you there. 2 minutes, and we will visit with Jacob Warren. While the Vols may need to move their practice schedule, and no, I'm not kidding, because this night game thing is not going away. Hang tight. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. This is Off the Hook Sports.
19 years this year. I've been in the community since 1993. You're getting a lot of information. Unlike when you were working, they made the choice for you. Now you have to make the choice. Come to us and let us help you make it easy. Call Medicare Misty, MedicareMisty.com or 423-777-5577. Let us help them sleep at night.
And we call her Medicare Misty.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that. If we wouldn't put our family in it, we're not going to put their family in it. If you're going to say that you're doing the best work in Knoxville, now saying it's one thing, producing it and providing it's another.
The largest family-owned collision center in Knoxville is Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at NFC1.com or stop by any one of our 7 East Tennessee locations.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, BanksJones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports,
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
All right, let's bring this guy in right now. The Warren Report, brought to you by Peak IV Hydration, and you should check them out. You can get the patch right now and order online. If we can drop that into the chat, I would greatly appreciate that. Peak IV Hydration. I want to tell you more about Peak IV Hydration, but I'll tell you right now, South Knoxville and Sevierville, they've got a wide range of IV treatments for you. Peak IV Hydration, over 100 5-star reviews, and no matter where you are, you can order the patch anywhere in the world. And Jacob, it works. I've used the patch. It's fantastic. How are you, sir?
We've all used the patch.
You're the patch. I'm the patch. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great, man. I'm doing all right. Everybody doing good? I see a little bit of fire in the chat, a little bit of drama. So it seems like it's been a good show so far.
Yeah, we're fired up. So I want to ask you 2 things before I get to this night game issue that I've got a problem with. Number one, we talked about in our opening segment. Is there any bitterness when Tennessee plays Arkansas with Nico Slaughter, or when Tennessee plays Kentucky with Gerald Mincy, or is it just business?
Yeah, it's just business. I think if anything, you I don't know how to explain it. Like, there's usually no hard feelings. I think during the game, I saw some talks about the linebacker that went to Alabama a couple years ago, and great player, right? Obviously, very, very good player. And so, when you're looking forward to those games and you're watching film, it's almost kind of refreshing, because you're like, I know this guy. Like, I know what he does. I've watched film on him. I've literally practiced against him for years. Like, I think it almost is kind of fun to have that battle just because you've never been on that side of it before. You've never been on truly wearing opposite colors. And so I think, yeah, for a guy like James Pierce going against Gerald Mincey when we play Kentucky, like I think that's going to be awesome, right? And I don't know how much they like each other, you know what I'm saying? Especially not now. But, for me, at least personally, is all I can speak from is my personal experience. I think it's been cool and it's been nice to see your guys that you hadn't seen in a little while because of the portal, whatever. Not everybody probably feels that way, but I think that's the way, that I handled most of those situations.
Dave,
Okay.
I'm sorry. I have to jump in and
go.
Jacob. I have to call Jacob Bourne out for that because you said the linebacker for Alabama, like you don't know who he is. Like you guys weren't teammates for 2 years.
Yeah,
Jacob,
y'all
I
were just
know when
talking
you
about
came
it.
in, and I know when Henry Toto came in.
I don't have to name drop him. Everybody knows what I'm talking about.
The linebacker. I think that tells me all that I need to know without putting words in Jacob's mouth.
Okay, listen, just don't go to Alabama. That's my thing. I love the kid. Just don't go to Alabama.
Nice.
You can go to Arkansas. You can go Ole Miss. I know a bunch of people talking about going to Ole Miss. Just don't go to Alabama, man. That's how I feel about it, and that's me personally. So.
All right. I like that. That's a rival. I like where you're coming from there. And then the other question that you probably didn't know at the time because you got your nose to the grindstone, you're working hard, but Jeremy Pruitt was probably not Tennessee's first choice. And Florida's in a mess right now. I don't know if they're going to get first choice because of the administration. And I floated the idea out there, and it's my notion. It's not based in any report, but
sure.
I don't think that Florida's going to have the pick of the litter. So I know that John Gruden wants to get back into coaching. I know he's interested in the NIL and all that, the transfer portal and building the program.
Love you too, Chris.
But go ahead. But he also, what's that?
The chat. He said, "I love you, Jacob."
Oh yeah.
Love you, Chris.
Oh, and then something else, hashtag something that we don't want to say on the air. Yeah, let me ask you, what would be tougher in a football culture, or how difficult would it be to overcome? I don't know if you're aware of what all John Gruden said, but it was some pretty racist stuff. How difficult would that be?
Oh my gosh!
Would that be to overcome?
I cannot hear you. Hold on one second.
Oh, okay. Well, I will go ahead and set the poll question, and that'll be that's all right. What do you think of night games? Because I think the Vols are in some sense at a bit of a disadvantage because of the number of night games they're going to play. So, what do you think of night games? On our YouTube channel, you can take part in the poll right now. I love them. I hate them. And then we'll find out what Jacob Warren has to say. Can you hear us now, Jacob?
Yeah, I got you loud and clear. Sorry, my bad. I was messing with those headphones and I'm going to have to do some much stuff on there to try to figure it out. So that's
why I still use the cord. But anyway, so getting back to that, how tough would it be? I mean, you're dealing with primarily African-Americans to stand up there and be their leader when it's public record that you've come across as just a racist.
Yeah, I think it's not even just racism. Like, and this is obviously something that, you could talk about forever, right? My skin's a little bit darker than both of y'all's skin. That's because my dad's black, right? And I think that is the most normal thing in the entire world. And I think that, that whole topic, and when you bring racism into things, it just kind of like, it makes things weird and it makes things hard to talk about for a lot of people. But I truly think, man, personally, it would be hard to have just a leader, I think that you might question his loyalty to you, or you might question, truly how he feels deep down. Obviously, like there's things people say, there's things people don't say. People are really good at hiding stuff, whatever. And if this is a situation where he just truly slipped up, and I'm somewhat aware of the situation, but I don't know all the details and I don't know about everything. So I don't want to speak necessarily on something I don't know, but just in a situation where a coach was coming in and it was said that maybe he had, done this or done that, I would be uneasy about it. I wouldn't necessarily be super happy about it. And just because, like you said, and in the Pruitt hire search, there was a lot of names kind of thrown out different coaches and things that maybe had that similar feeling to them, not necessarily racism, but just they had done some things in the past, or they had a little record, or had, some things that are kind of just sketchy or whatever. And for sure, it made me feel pretty uneasy about that person getting hired. That was a big part of my recruiting process, was if they hired somebody that I really felt like I didn't want to associate myself with, then I would have ended up having to not be there, if that makes sense. And so I think for a guy like me, I'm not saying I'm any better than anybody else, but for a guy like me that looks at the world in a very pretty critical way, and I try to, I'm very concerned with who I'm around and who I surround myself with, and I've been like that for my whole life. It'd be hard for me to just commit to a guy that I felt that way about, if that answers the question.
It does, but it answers it very well. Jacob's Appearance brought to you by Peak IV Hydration. They got the patch, peakivhydration.com. Our poll question: what do you think of night games? 86% say I love them. 14% say I hate them. What do you say, Jacob Warren? As a former player, what did you think of night games?
I say I love it after 5:30 p.m. I think after about 5:30, everything is smooth, everything is great. You can really get excited for the game, and then the game happens, and obviously the night game environment, in my opinion, way better, 10 times better than any mid-afternoon or early game environment. I think it just is, and I think especially that's with Neyland Stadium and the way that the fans show up at night, and the way that the stadium just is at night, all the light shows, all the things that they're able to do on a night game is very cool. What's not amazing is kind of trying to get your mind and your body right in the 8 hours that you're awake leading up to the game, that you have nothing to do. You're just in the hotel. You might have a couple meetings here and there, but honestly, it's just a lot of time to sit around, and some people have different ways of getting ready. I think as the season goes, and as you kind of have more night games, I think you kind of build a routine, and you kind of understand, okay, at this time, I'm going to take my nap, right? My nap was always around like 1 o'clock. I would always take my nap around 1 o'clock. It wouldn't be too long, like 45 minutes. And then I'd get up, and from that point on, I'm just trying to rest, recover, eat, hydrate, and just get ready for the game. So it is a long, kind of drawn out process whenever you have a night game for a player, but I understand the fans like it a lot, and I like it a lot. So I think it's worth it for me. And I kind of got to the point where I didn't mind them. But I do understand how it's very, if inconvenient was a thing, it's not inconvenient, right? We get to go play football, and it's amazing opportunity, but what I'm saying, it's not necessarily ideal. I think for a team, and I think we're about to get into this, so we can kind of segue into this, a team that practices in the morning, does everything in the morning, wakes up early every morning, and everything is so early in the day focused for our team, and just everything that Coach Hype does. And so, it is a little bit different. And so, I know we're going to talk about kind of moving practice, but we can kind of go ahead and get into that if you want, if you're kind of.
Well, yeah, but I do, but I wonder about this, and that is the recovery time, especially on a road game, because there's situations in which you probably played a road game and your head didn't hit the pillow till like 4:30 or 5 a.m. by the time you got back. How challenging is that?
Yeah, I guess I didn't really think about that. I thought more, home game, and you're in your town at 5 minutes away from your apartment, and you're in your facility, all that stuff, and that's just not the case. Yeah, a lot of these games have been road games, and will continue to be road games, and I think that's really where you struggle, is because again, like we talked about, I still am in touch with a lot of the guys that are on the team, and I got guys sending me Snapchats or messages or something saying they just got home, and it's 4:30 in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, and I got a buddy that's coaching and kind of GAing and stuff, and like they get home and they're watching the film, like breaking stuff down. He's still working a little bit, like they're grinding, man. And so this, like you said, like it's just one of those things you have to deal with. And I guess when you're away, when you're on a road trip, not necessarily ideal. So I don't know, I don't even know what else to say about it. But yeah, it for sure makes for a good playing environment, which is nice.
Yeah.
Jacob, how much does playing at night? By the way, just throwing back real quick. I just want you to know, Jacob, I think I saved you guys. I'm kidding, but I was beating the drum like hell in 2021, saying Tennessee cannot hire Hugh Freeze. They should not hire Hugh Freeze. That would absolutely be a horrible hire for so many reasons. And I think they listened to me, so I'm kidding. But
wait,
They heard what
Jacob,
you said.
yeah, Jacob didn't specify. He didn't call out Hugh.
I didn't say a single name, brother.
He didn't say a single name. I can say the name, and I'm going to call him out. And I've called him. I'm from Memphis. He coached in Memphis. He's one of the worst human beings alive. I'll just put that out there. So Jacob, with night games though, how much does not just the practicing in the morning and kind of recovery period, how much does sitting and seeing everything happening in college football that day kind of mess with your psyche getting ready for a night game? I know the South Carolina game a couple of years ago, you guys obviously had to be paying attention because you're thinking about your spot in the college football playoff, right? Before the kickoff. Was that weighing on you the whole game, the whole day?
Yeah, to me, man, watching football to me is almost more relaxing, especially when I don't know the guy. So like if I'm just kind of watching the game and it's just on the background, for me, it's easy to just kind of tune it out and just watch and just be observant and just kind of enjoy it. But there was definitely times when you're watching games and you're like, okay, they just beat them and we beat them earlier, or we play them next week. Like, let me go ahead and watch this game. And so now, sure, there might be a little bit of, mind games of, okay, I'm playing this game. What does this mean? What's the implications? And what does this game actually mean? And might build more pressure, might not. But for the most part, watching those games, I think more just build anticipation. You're like, dude, I just want to get out there. Like, truly, I wish I was doing this right now instead of watching it on TV. So, yeah, I think that's the biggest thing as far as watching the guys, and probably later in the season, once it gets more towards decision-making time for playoffs and for, top of the roster, top of the leagues and the divisions and everything like that, there's, that's a different story. But right now it's more just kind of watching games to enjoy and just kind of pass the time.
So let me ask you a question. Take me back to 2022. You guys make a trip to Baton Rouge and you guys practice in the morning.
Yeah.
And the game was at noon, which local time was 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
And LSU practices in the afternoon, which when I covered Tennessee on a day-to-day basis, they were all afternoons. So that's the way it used to be. Probably
it seems like.
Yeah. Probably when your dad played too. So do you feel like you had an advantage body clock wise going out there? Because you guys thumped them from the beginning and they looked like they were sleepwalking through the first quarter.
Yeah. Shout out Will Brooks, first of all. He made the play that I truthfully, and like he's one of my best friends, so I'm gonna say that. But like truthfully, like changed the whole game. That set the tone for the game. There was the kickoff, and the guy muffed it. He goes, keeps the feet in bounds, makes that recovery, and like that game. I promise you, on the sideline, that game is over. From that moment, everyone's like, this game is wraps. Like, we are here. Like, it's so cool to feel like momentum and stuff like that when you're on a sideline. But from that moment, dude, like that game was wraps. So second of all, yes, I do think that, we just got done talking about how long and drawn out night games are. I also really love that noon kickoff. I think that time slot is the best for me personally, because, like you said, you wake up, your body's already used to, playing, right? Used to moving around early, used to getting up, using your mind and just kind of getting going. So yeah, to me, that's the ideal kickoff, if you are a morning practice team, which Tennessee is. So obviously it's, it's a good thing and a bad thing. I guess it's a great thing that we're getting all these night games, right? Obviously that's kind of becoming the primetime spot. Like these are the money games, and this is the games that people want to see. And it's the easiest to watch for a lot of people because, if they work or whatever. So usually you get more viewership, you get, the real primetime spots are those night games. And that's great. We're a contender this year, and we're a team that, people really, really want to watch. They want to watch Nico. They want to watch our defense. And so it's just something you kind of have to deal with.
Jacob, I want to transition to that a little bit. The SEC deal with ESPN pretty much makes it that, ESPN wants to push everything to night games. And as you know, the Big Ten, I think largely because things get cold in November up there, they want to keep everything at noon kickoffs and things like that. Do you think that practice times may need to change in Knoxville to maybe be able to be better equipped to deal with the new SEC schedule?
Yeah, I don't think it's that easy. You know what I mean? I don't think it's just as simple as, okay, guys, let's go at 3:00 today. Let's go at, in the evening today instead of the morning time. There's so many logistics, and there's so many, obviously these guys are still kids, right? They're still in school, they're still students, and they have study hall, they have class, they have lectures, they have tests, they have all this stuff during the week that, is very specifically and intentionally slotted out to be the back half of your day. I mean, you're at football, 7 a.m., whatever time it is, and you get out whatever time it is. And then from that moment on, you're pretty much just a student for the rest of the day. And obviously you come back and you have your meetings with your coaches or with your individual groups or whatever. But, I'm sure there's a way they could figure it out, but that's a lot of logistics to jump through to make.
Yeah. And I want to be clear. I wouldn't think you would do it in the middle of the season. I mean,
yeah, okay, gotcha.
But I'm talking about headed into next year. Is that something that Josh Heupel you think should consider as a player? Do you prefer mornings, or have you ever practiced in the afternoon? I'm sure
we practiced in the afternoon when I was under the previous regime, if you will.
Okay, so bullet head. All right, so do you have a preference as a player?
Yeah, I mean, that for sure. I prefer the way we've done it in the past 3 years or 4 years now, I guess. I keep saying we, not on the team anymore, but you know what I'm saying. I prefer the way that it was done the past 3 years, and I think that for sure it's not fun getting up super early every single morning, but I think once you get used to it, you start to appreciate the weekends when you can sleep in for a night game. You don't have to wake up. There's always the good and the bad, whatever. But no, I prefer the morning time. I think you get better weather in the mornings, especially in Tennessee. In the fall and in the late summer, it can get pretty warm in the afternoon. So you get better weather. You wake up and almost kind of get a little, I don't know, it's a good pick me up in the morning. You feel like your day goes by a little bit quicker when you knock it all out in the morning. And yeah, that's my preference. Obviously, it could change. I don't see it changing personally, but if that's something they feel like they need to take into consideration as far as body clock and all those other things, I could see him considering it, but it would be hard, I think.
Okay, let me get your keys to the game on Saturday, Tennessee at Arkansas. First, I want to tell people about Peak IV Hydration. Peak IV Hydration, over 100 5-star reviews. Jacob, there's no question that it works. Can make you feel fantastic, rejuvenated, and it's just a fantastic product. They've got the patch that people can order online.
Yeah, no doubt. It works. Truthfully, it works from my experience, from Dave's experience. Obviously, it's something a little bit different. So people might maybe not have tried it before, but I encourage you to go and just take a look at it, man. Kind of read up on what it's about. Just take time to consider it for yourself. If you ever feel like you might have days here and there, maybe on the weekends you're out hiking stuff or doing a bunch of stuff outside, whatever it may be, just go try them out and let us know what you think. Maybe in the comment section, maybe come back and let us know what you think. But we 100% appreciate the guys over at Peak Hydration and the ladies at Peak Hydration for helping us out and supporting us on the show.
So keys to the game.
Keys to the game this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I think the key to the game this weekend will be allowing your offense to come out early and just be who they are. I think if you can dominate this game early on the line of scrimmage, defensively and offensively, a guy like Dylan Sampson should be able to go out there and have a great day. And guys like Elijah Simmons and Amari Thomas and James Pierce should be able to go out there and just dominate the front line. And I think, that's what's going to be the key to the game every single week. For this team specifically, is dominating the line of scrimmage and then being able to hit your shots down the field. And Nico, we know, man, has that ability. We've seen Dante make plays over the middle, seen Chris Brazel make plays down the field, and you see all these wide receivers really coming through and starting to kind of find themselves within this offense. And so I think, starting it on the ground and just dominating the line of scrimmage with our big guys up front will be the biggest factor of how successful we are on Saturday.
Okay, well, you led us into this, so I don't want to take too much of your time, but I think I've got a stat of the day that's going to blow your mind. You want to hang tight? It's about one of your buddies.
All right.
Okay, this is a good one. Brought to you by Quality Tire Pros. The Eberle family has been serving Chattanooga's community since 1957. All major brands of tires, full service automotive, brake alignments, oil changes, and more. All work is covered by a nationwide warranty. Cherokee Blvd or online at qualitytirepros.com. Dylan Sampson has 10 rushing touchdowns.
Yep.
Jay.
I already know what you're saying. Go ahead. Keep going.
Oh, you know the stat? Okay. Now, he is on pace, by my math, to hit 30 touchdowns if he keeps going at this current pace. I don't think that's going to happen, but he's well within striking distance of the record. So the record goes back to 1929.
Good gosh.
Dean McKeever with 18 touchdowns. Players that got close to that, Reggie Cobb in 1987 got 17. Tony Thompson in 1990 got 16. What do you think that would mean for Dylan Sampson? We don't talk about these all-time crazy records very often.
Yeah, I mean, a guy like that, and to be in this position just so, I don't want to say nonchalantly, because I don't want to downplay what he's done and the work he's put in and the work the O-line's put in, but to do it just so it looks like effortlessly, and just so he's honestly just out there taking advantage of all the opportunities he's getting and making it opportunities for himself with the way he runs the ball. And he deserves it, dude. Like, we've had great backs since I've been there. You know what I'm saying? We've had great backs. We've had backs that have been in the NFL. We've had backs that, have been in these other leagues and stuff like that, whatever. But Dylan, man, he just the way he's able to just find the end zone. And obviously some of them are these little 1 yard, handoff. And they just threw it and the guy got tackled, just hand him the ball off. Like, we all understand that. But just the feat that it would be to be able to break that record would be insane. And I know he would be more appreciative of it than anybody else. And so, obviously we're going to be watching and we're going to be rooting for him. I'll probably send him a message or something and just let him know and just continue to encourage him. But truly, man, nobody more deserving. I think he's a great leader. I think he's a great player, and he's awesome to be around. And he deserves it, man. He puts in the work and he trusts his guys, and it's showing up on the field, which is great.
Jacob, I can't tell you how much we appreciate you. Have a blessed day. We'll talk to you soon.
Oh, yeah. See y'all later.
Thanks, buddy. Jacob Warren, BFL, nice enough to join us. Brought to you by Peak IV Hydration. Also want to remind you that you need to join Hooker's Corner, because if you do so, you have an opportunity to win great prizes, weekly prizes, and also our grand prize, which we'll give away on Friday. And that's a pick six glossy photos of Tennessee's defensive backs at 6 prizes in one, a pick six, and increased recruiting coverage, more interaction with me and Caleb Calhoun. The QR code is right there, so scan on it, and you can become a member for just $9.98 of Hooker's Corner. Also, if you just want to be a free member, you're more than welcome. There are great benefits there, which include the opportunity to win a Garmin watch worth over $1,000. It's Rick Terry's Great 8 Challenge. And once we hit 8,000 subscribers, if you're a free member of Hooker's Corner, you will be eligible to win a Garmin watch worth over $1,000. So be sure and either become a free member or paid member. And Rick Terry Jewelry Design. We love Rick and what he does. He has the affordable game day jewelry, and those fire opals are fantastic. A Tennessee tradition. Go to rickterryjewelry.com. We will visit with the one, the only John Adams in just one moment. Hang tight. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. This is Off the Hook Sports.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank. Life made better.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at NFC1.com or stop by any one of our 7 East Tennessee locations.
When the lights turn on and the game begins, you need a team you can rely on. Ray Varner Ford in Clinton's strong lineup of vehicles is crafted with the same dedication and hard work that drives our community. Experience quality and value in this pre-owned 2018 Ford Mustang Convertible, 24,550, 2023 Ford Bronco Sport Big Bend, 29,789, 2022 Ford Escape SEL all-wheel drive, 26,975. Local you trust, pre-owned vehicles you can afford. Ray Varner Ford, built for the game.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys.
Excuse me, Your Honor.
Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports,
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
All right, give us an update on the poll question if you can, Caleb Calhoun.
The poll question is, what do you think of night games? 90% say love them. 10% say hate them.
I don't think it's fair to the players to play as many night games as they're playing, to be real honest with you. And I would highly suggest that Josh Heupel, who doesn't take a lot of advice from me, consider moving the practice that they have in the mornings now to the afternoons. Of course, we'll be talking about next year. I'm not talking about right now. That would be crazy and absurd. John Adams joins us right now of the Knoxville News Sentinel. We'll put you in the middle, and if you can move John a little closer to Caleb, that would be fantastic. And then just up, down, and all around. Perfect. All right, John, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Dave. I
Okay.
like night games.
Why?
Because I watch college football all day. And so now, it used to be night games were horrible because you're writing on deadline all the time. But now that I write for web, have to have my column in right away after the game. It doesn't matter if it starts at noon, 3:30, or 7:30. So play them all at night, and I'll be up till 3 in the morning. That's fine. I'm a 9L.
There we go. All right. So it's all John can do to be available by 11 on a day-to-day basis. But I understand that. If I had your schedule, I would as well.
Well, John is obviously so much younger than me and you, Dave. So, it's really.
That's right. All right. He's up partying, rocking it, giving shout outs. All right. So let's set it. I want to set a new poll question up there, if we may. And that is, will Arkansas test the Vols offensively?
I don't put that up now.
John, I want to go ahead and offer up this. Arkansas will test Tennessee's offense, the first true test of the season. Bank on it. And that's brought to you by Commercial Bank, member FDIC. Life made better. Commercial Bank creates positive experiences for every customer every day. Better solutions, better technology. Commercial Bank, CBTN.com. Personal and business commercial bank. John, should we bank on it that this is the first true test for Tennessee's elite defense? At least we think it is.
Yeah, I think it's the strongest test Tennessee has had for its defense, but I think after the game, we may still be wondering, well, when is Tennessee going to get its first test offensively? Arkansas, I was shocked when I looked up the stats that Arkansas ranked 13th in the country in total offense. How's that even possible? I've watched them play. I don't see the offense to be that dynamic. Jaquindon Jackson is a power runner, can break tackles, 230 pounds. Taylor Green, the quarterback, is interesting in he's a really good runner. He's very deceptive. He's 6'6", and he has these long strides, and guys don't get proper angles on him a lot of times on the corner. But his passing is really erratic. I think he could be turnover prone. So it's hard to say, but based on what we've seen in the stats, yeah, Arkansas should test Tennessee more, but I just don't see it moving the ball that effectively on Tennessee's defense.
Caleb?
So what about this? I mean, we keep saying, will they test Tennessee defensively? But, John, theoretically, they could finally test Nico Iamaleava too, right? Because if they do move the ball, this will really be Tennessee's first game in which they might need to turn to Nico Iamaleava to make some plays. And, I mean, his numbers, I think, it's kind of unfortunate for him. Tennessee's been so dominant, they haven't needed him to do anything, so they've kind of kept him close to the vest. I think he still is capable of being a Heisman caliber quarterback. Do you think this could be maybe the first game in which Josh Heupel unleashes Nico a bit because he kind of has to?
Yeah, Caleb, I really do, because I've looked Arkansas against UAB and against Oklahoma State gave up a lot of yardage passing. The quarterback for UAB threw for 3 touchdowns. Oklahoma State's Alex Bowman passed for well over 300 yards. So I think this is a game where Tennessee may really need to crank up its offense. It's not. I don't think he'll be like the Oklahoma game where you play really conservative because you got the game in hand, you got some tackles hurt. But I think this is a game where Tennessee really cranks it up offensively, and that would give Nico a chance to make plays.
John, what would it take to convince you that this defense is elite? And could that happen potentially on Saturday, or is it down the road?
Well, here's the thing. Watching the Alabama-Georgia game, going into that game, you could say both defenses are elite, just based on statistics, if nothing else. Georgia hadn't given up a touchdown. Alabama hadn't given up many points. Yet you get into that game and you got both teams are going for over 500 yards. So maybe part of that is the standard for what's an elite defense has changed in this offensive era. So I think you have to consider that. But I would like to see Tennessee, I guess, against an elite offense. And we won't see that Saturday. I think maybe you'll have to wait to the Alabama game.
They're ranked 13th in the country, though, John.
I know, but they also played something called University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff, or as its fans call it, UAPB.
Well, well, my phone just rang. It was a bookie in Vegas, and he said that Arkansas Pine Bluff would be favored over Kent State by 13.5. So, I mean,
Eastern Michigan was a 14-point favorite, and it had no trouble covering against Kent State. I haven't seen UAPB. That's one team I haven't watched this year. Life is too short, but ESPN Plus, I guess you can find its games. I might check them out one time just to see how inept they are.
But John,
I think that practice. Go ahead, Cal.
John's bringing up a great point, though. It's still, even though we're in October now, would you guys both say it's still way too early to really measure how teams are statistically? Because everybody's played at least 2 really bad teams still, and that's inflating everybody's stats, isn't it?
Yeah, when you look at Tennessee's, none of its FBS, it's 3 FBS programs, all rank 100th or worst out of 133 teams in total offense. Now, part to do with the fact they played Tennessee and had awful games statistically against the Vols. But Kent State, to Dave's point, Kent State is dead last in total offense. It's down to its 3rd-string quarterback, and I may have to check Kent State out. I actually watched a few plays of that game last week.
Yeah.
It's really bad.
I would argue this, though, guys, that we're at the point in the season where the statistics do matter. I think when you get about 5 weeks deep into October, I think they kind of even themselves out because we could pick apart almost any SEC team's schedule. I think stats are apt now. I did not think they were apt after 2 weeks, given who the Vols had played and given who most of the SEC had played.
Well, here's the thing, Dave. Tennessee supposedly tough opponents, NC State and Oklahoma, are just playing dreadfully offensively. It just worked out that way. Oklahoma, because it's a rash of injuries to wide receivers and offensive linemen. I don't know what NC State's problem is, but Grayson McCall from Coastal Carolina was supposed to be the savior for their offense. He probably should have stayed at Coastal Carolina. So he's lost his starting job. So, yeah, it's just hard to say. But there are maybe Florida can test defense, Tennessee's defense more. I just think it takes a more balanced offense than what Arkansas will present. I think it's very run-oriented, and Taylor Green's hit some big pass plays. And maybe I'm too biased from I just think Tennessee's defense is better than it is. I'm just so impressed with that defensive front where you're putting a dozen guys in there, just shuttling them in and out, and they're all making plays. I mean, I think Tennessee has a better defensive front than Alabama or Georgia. So it's hard for me when I going into a game and I look at Arkansas, watch its game. I say, boy, they could really challenge Tennessee's defense. I just don't see it.
Okay, Bank on It Part 2, brought to you by Commercial Bank. The first part was this will be Tennessee's most significant test defensively in the Arkansas game. Would we all agree with that?
Yes.
That's fair, yes.
Okay. Bank on it, Tennessee's defense is elite no matter what happens on Saturday. I'll take that step. Do you guys want to follow Bank on It, brought to you by Commercial Bank?
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank. Life made better.
All right, John, this Tennessee defense is elite. Are you willing to bank on it?
Yeah, I'll bank on it right now. But if Arkansas goes out and gains 500 yards, I'll change my mind. And I'll say, well, maybe the schedule, maybe I overrated Tennessee. But when I watch Tennessee play and I watch all these different college football games, I just don't see a defensive front dominating the way Tennessee's is. And if you got a defensive front and that can bring that kind of heat on an offense, it impacts everything. It even impacts Tennessee's offense. But quarterback doesn't have time to throw. He's scrambling for his life. Running backs get stonewalled at the line of scrimmage. You got to go to plan B or plan C against Tennessee. And its secondary is playing well, thanks in part to that defensive front. And the linebackers, and I thought we talked about this last week. I talked about that being it was a questionable area for Tennessee's defense in preseason. But those guys are making plays, and it's much easier to make plays when you got that defensive front just walling off all the blockers and you're just free to go get the ball carrier. So I think it's elite. I really believe it's elite, but I guess Arkansas could change my mind.
Caleb, are you willing to say that Tennessee's defense is elite no matter what happens against Arkansas? I am.
I mean, I am too. Also because Arkansas does, to a certain degree, play up to a lot of their opponents. And then, as we'll get to later, thanks to mismanagement by Sam Pittman, usually loses it in the end somehow.
What I'm asking everybody is, hold on. What I'm asking everybody is, will we be saying that Tennessee's defense is elite at the end of November? Have we seen enough?
Yes.
Well, see, I still want to say, I mean, I think it's elite, but I still want to see it against a better balanced offense, a team that can run a little bit and throw a little bit. These opponents it's played are just so inept offensively. Look at Oklahoma. Its offense is a mess. It's not moving the ball effectively against anybody, except for like the Kent States of the world. And the same with NC State. It had 171 yards total offense against Northern Illinois. 171 yards. Still won the game, but that speaks to how challenged it is offensively. So I want to see a more complete offense against Tennessee. I think I like Florida's offense better than I do Arkansas's.
John's appearance brought to you by Neubert Collision Center. Great people there at Neubert Collision Center.
5th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that. If we wouldn't put our family in it, we're not going to put their family in it. If you're going to say that you're doing the best work in Knoxville, now saying it's one thing, producing it and providing it's another.
The largest family-owned collision center in Knoxville is Joe Neubert Collision Center.
All right, John, I want to change gears on you a little bit because we saw a great matchup in the SEC, Instant Classic, all that good stuff. But it leads us to today's tough question, and it's right now with John Adams, brought to you by Neubert Collision Center. Today's tough question.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
All right, John, it's pretty simple. Today's tough question is this. After seeing the Georgia-Alabama game, you feel confident that Tennessee can beat one, both, or neither?
Well, I feel confident it can beat one. I don't know which one. It has a home field advantage against Alabama, and that matters greatly. However, when I watch Georgia, I'm not that high on Georgia right now. I think Tennessee can win in Athens. I think it will win there. Alabama will present more problems, even though it's in Neyland Stadium.
I agree with that. I think Carson Beck's got a noodle, and I think he's basically Stetson Bennett with less wheels and a bad attitude. Caleb?
I mean, I agree with you guys about the bad attitude. I don't think Carson Beck's a leader, and I know that's going to be, I think a lot of people don't like hearing that, but I do believe that. But John, so you're saying, and I just want to get you on record on this, you're saying that Alabama at Neyland Stadium in a likely night game will be tougher than Georgia in Athens. Not just Alabama versus Georgia over who's tougher, but Alabama at Neyland Stadium is tougher.
Yeah, I think so. And I kind of thought that before the game. The game itself in Tuscaloosa kind of confirmed what I was thinking, because I think Georgia is its defense is not as good as it has been. It's still a good defense, but offensively, where are the playmakers? Who can you really count on to make the big plays? I look at Alabama, and I think against Tennessee's defense, we've been talking about Tennessee's defense, I think you got to be able to make some plays. You got to be able to go off script and make some plays. Jalen Milroe can do that about as well as anybody. And Ryan Williams is a star already. He's just an instant star as a 17-year-old freshman. I don't see a Ryan Williams for Georgia. Their receiving core, it doesn't have a Ladd McConkey from last year. It doesn't have a Brock Bowers, obviously, at tight end. I just think it's kind of limited into what it can do. Now, maybe its running game will get better, but right now its running game is not that good. I don't see how it beats Tennessee.
Okay, so then I got to push back on this because everybody's, again, Alabama needed a late touchdown to win after leading 20-0. If these issues are persisting, then how would you say Georgia even got back in that game? Because they were down 28-0 and they came back and they took the lead.
Yeah, I'm not as down on Carson Beck as you are. I think he's one of the most accurate college passers I've seen. He had a really bad opening act. He wasn't very effective, but he shook that off. And once Georgia got in a situation where he just had to throw the ball, he really got in rhythm. And Alabama's secondary got exposed. You think Alabama always has good athletes back there, but it really got exposed in that second half. However, I've seen games like this when a team jumps out to a commanding lead in a big game, and it's kind of like, what do we do now? It's 28-0. The game's just starting. It's 28-0. I think you lose your edge. And I think that contributed, in my mind, that contributed to Georgia's comeback. But I thought it was more telling. Why did Georgia? It's okay, it made defensive adjustments. But once Alabama got behind for that very brief period, boom, it goes right down and scores a touchdown. That kind of made me think, well, it didn't consciously back off or play that conservatively, but I just thought it lost its edge. It's like, we've got this game. We just got to play it out and go ahead and win it. So I just I wasn't wowed by Georgia's comeback, I guess is my point.
John, I'll go ahead and tell you that I think Alabama's a significantly better team. Maybe they took their foot off the gas because they have an elite quarterback, and no matter what system he's playing in. And getting back to, listen, I watched the game as you did, and I felt like Carson Beck was more of a hindrance than a help. I think that Stetson Bennett, who is somewhat underrated, could have done all those things. I thought the deep pass was underthrown. He didn't put loft on the ball in the interception that ended the game. I think they've got a quarterback issue, and I think that's going to show up later in the year. I think he's overrated. I just was, and Caleb, I don't, we talked about this yesterday. You might disagree with me as well, but I'm going to stand on this until I'm proven otherwise. I think they've got a quarterback issue.
Yeah, I disagree.
Okay, John?
Yeah, I disagree too. I'm not saying he's the best quarterback in the country. I say he's still a first-round draft pick. When NFL scouts look at his accuracy, you brought up a couple of passes that he was good on, but play in and play out, Carson Beck's very accurate. He can throw it into a tight window, and I think that's why NFL likes him. But there are things about he's not what Stetson Bennett was, but Stetson Bennett was extremely underrated, and he had that unique quality to lift a team and raise his game in the clutch. He just had the Tom Brady-like quality. He did that. So Carson Beck doesn't have that. I kind of think Jalen Milroe has some of that. And I think we're seeing it more. We'll see it more with Kalen DeBoer than we did with Nick Saban. I think he likes playing for DeBoer more than he liked playing for Nick Saban.
Now, I do want to be clear. I think that Georgia can overcome Carson Beck and win a championship. I'm not saying he's that bad, but I don't see him being great.
What kind of help does he have though? His offensive line couldn't block Alabama's defensive front. It couldn't run the ball on Alabama. So then who does he have that's an elite playmaker at receiver?
Fair enough.
I don't see where he has any help.
Guys, can we say a difference between Stetson and Bennett? I mean, Stetson and Beck too. Is Stetson Bennett had Todd Monken calling plays for him, and Carson Beck has Mike Bobo calling plays? I think that's a big drop off at offensive coordinator.
Well, I think Todd Monken's one of the best play callers around. So
yeah,
I don't think Bobo's a bad play caller. He called plays pretty well in that second. I just think Georgia is limited personnel wise. I mean, I look at, okay, just take Tennessee for an example. Okay, who on of Georgia's receivers and running backs, I know Etienne's a good running back, but we haven't really seen it behind this offensive line. But I would take Dylan Sampson over Etienne as a running back. And I would certainly take Tennessee's wide receivers over Georgia's. So,
okay, let me ask. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, John. I'm sorry.
Well, no, I'm just saying that to me, we aren't accustomed to seeing this. But it's not like Georgia's shuffling in, 3 and 4 elite running backs like it has on some of its better teams. But to me, the more troubling aspect of the offense is the fact that Georgia couldn't block Kentucky and it couldn't block Alabama.
Okay, let me ask you guys this. How many SEC quarterbacks would you take over Carson Beck after a quick message from Medicare Misty?
19 years this year. Well, I've been in the community since 1993. You're getting a lot of information. Unlike when you were working, they made the choice for you. Now you have to make the choice. Come to us and let us help you make it easy. Call Medicare Misty, MedicareMisty.com or 423-777-5577. Let us help them sleep at night.
And we call her Medicare Misty.
All right, so I've got 6 quarterbacks I would take over Carson Beck that are playing in the SEC. 2 are at Texas: Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe, Nico Iamaleava. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'd take Garrett Nussmeier at LSU. I've got him at best 5th. Do you guys disagree with that?
Well, the thing is, the SEC is loaded with outstanding quarterbacks. I've never seen the league this strong at that position. Do you not think Carson Beck will be a first-round draft pick, Dave?
Oh, man. I think that either
With
something
the fact
is
you're
wrong
even
with
thinking about what?
I think either something is wrong with his shoulder, or he got drove into the ground at Clemson. I think either something is wrong with his shoulder or he lacks arm strength.
Well, I never thought he lacked arm strength. So maybe the shoulder is an issue. It's been bothering him. We don't know how much. It's impossible to discern that. But, I mean, I still think of the guy as a first-round draft pick. What do you say, Caleb? Do you think he's a first-round draft pick?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think he's first round draft pick. I thought he played well in the second half of that game.
Guys, the deep ball was way underthrown, and then he threw the interception that cost him the game. What are we talking about?
We let him up and down the field, one touchdown after another in that second
And they're
half.
playing soft coverage. I feel like crazy pills.
I got to push back on both you guys, though, too, on that, particularly you, John, when you say, like, okay, if you're questioning Alabama's secondary a little bit, which I'm kind of with you on, this is why I think Tennessee has a better chance of beating Alabama than Georgia. Because if Alabama's secondary is questionable and you think Tennessee's got better receivers than Georgia, which I do, and I think we all think Nico Iamaleava is a better quarterback than Carson Beck at the moment, then Nico Iamaleava should torch that Alabama secondary. Should absolutely light them up. And I'm not so sure that I don't think Tennessee can light up Georgia the way they could light up Alabama's defense. I'll just say that.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I mean, Alabama's pass coverage. Honestly, it looked like Alabama's secondary 2 years ago when it had was full of future NFL players and draft picks, and Tennessee scored 52 points on it, and Jalen Hyatt was never covered in the entire game. So
you could see that again.
Well, I mean, then if you can. I don't think Georgia can score with Alabama, though. Against Tennessee, I would be more concerned about Alabama's offense than I would Georgia's offense from a Tennessee perspective. So, I mean, maybe I'm not saying Tennessee's going to lose to Alabama. I'm just saying if I had to pick one.
Okay. All right. This day in Tennessee sports history is now, and it's brought to you by the UPS store Hardin Valley. here to help individuals and small businesses by offering a wide range of products and services, locally owned and operated and conveniently located at 10629 Hardin Valley Road. The link is right down below. Caleb, this day in Tennessee sports history is what?
Yeah, it is the 30-year anniversary of Peyton Manning's first start at Tennessee. The Vols were 1-3. Peyton Manning is thrown to the Wolves to start against the number 1 ranked defense in the nation in Washington State. They come to Neyland Stadium, and the only touchdown in the game was a Nilo Sylvan 62-yard run on a reverse that led Tennessee to a 10-9 hideous victory.
Yes, John. What do you remember? What were your earliest impressions of Peyton Manning?
Oh, he was going to be a superstar. I mean, first time I saw he was in a scrimmage, a preseason scrimmage. That's when we had more access, and he went out and maybe completed 10 of 11 passes. But what was so impressive about him was that he just looked so comfortable out there. He seemed to know where everybody was. Well, he's just started as a freshman, but he just seemed so in control of the offense. And he didn't start right away, though. Jerry Colquitt was a starter, and they made some more and went to Todd Helton before they finally went to Peyton because of injuries. But you just knew this guy was going to be really good. I don't see how he's one of those guys. If you saw him right away, surely you would think, well, this guy's an NFL player.
See, I wondered, because I was a young man at the time. I think I just turned 18. I wondered if you thought at all he was too gangly or anything like that. I'm sure you thought he needed to put on weight, but was, talk about that all the time. It's like everybody holds their collective breath every time Nico runs it. Like everybody knocks, I mean, was that a concern at all that he didn't look very athletic? That was a different time in football, of course.
Well, I don't know, though, because you had Brandon Stewart was also a freshman, an acclaimed freshman from Stephenville, Texas. Very athletic, a much better runner than Peyton, with a good arm, too. So there were some fans that thought Brandon Stewart was better than Peyton Manning as a freshman. And they were alternating them. In the first game when Jerry Colquitt got hurt, they ended up playing 4 quarterbacks. Never seen anything like that, but former Tennessee coach Philip Fulmer was obsessed with not putting one of those freshmen over the other. He would say, if he said Brandon's name first, then the next time he said Peyton's names first. It was very odd, but go ahead.
What would you say was the percentage? I think that circles I ran with, which at 18, they weren't great, credible circles, but
yeah. Hey, Dave, you could say that some about the same people that you ran with. You could say the same thing about them now, probably.
Yeah, probably. But I thought that it was almost 50-50 of people that wanted Brandon Stewart over Peyton Manning. I thought it was about 60-40. And Caleb, this might stun you being a younger guy, but John, am I off base there that heading into the offseason, or at least towards the end of that Peyton and Brandon's first year, that a lot of people thought it should be Brandon Stewart?
No, that was only until Peyton became the starter. Was there that debate? And I agree with you. There was a sense that Brandon, because of his athleticism, he could really run. Wasn't as tall, wasn't as big as Peyton, but yeah, once Peyton got in there, and the Washington State game was a rough test, but then he just kept getting better and better. And by the end of the year, in the bowl game in Jacksonville, he was, or was that in Gainesville?
It was in Gainesville, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. But anyway, Peyton, I remember him making about a 15-yard run. It was as good as a run as I saw him make at Tennessee. He just seemed so poised by then, and he was making big-time throws. I remember a game against Mississippi State early. He threaded the ball like an intermediate range pass, maybe 30 yards downfield between 2 defenders. And nobody ever raved about Peyton's arm strength. He wasn't, he can't throw it over tall buildings and that kind of stuff. But he had a really good arm. But the thing is, when he had to throw it hard, when he could do it, and he had a great touch. So no, I think once he made a few starts, that debate was over, and the people were the same people that were saying Brandon Stewart's better and he deserves to play were saying, Brandon who?
Yeah. This day in Tennessee sports history brought to you by Asia Cafe. Treat yourself to authentic Asian cuisine handcrafted from guarded family recipes. 5 locations to choose from, asiacafe.org. Look over my shoulder and you will see a fantastic Brazilian cocoa energy booster premix instant white coffee that you can order at asiacafe.org. The Lim dynasty has been around since 1909. Philip Lim carrying the torch for 3 generations, bringing it to Knoxville, Tennessee. In 2 minutes, we continue with John, and you won't want to miss what we have next, because Josh Heupel has many labels. He has many titles: husband, father, coach, offensive guru, executioner. Up next, 2 minutes off the Hook Sports.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank. Life made better.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at nfc1.com or stop by any one of our 7 East Tennessee locations.
When the lights turn on and the game begins, you need a team you can rely on. Ray Varner Ford in Clinton's strong lineup of vehicles is crafted with the same dedication and hard work that drives our community. Experience quality and value in this pre-owned 2018 Ford Mustang Convertible, 24,550, 2023 Ford Bronco Sport Big Bend, 29,789, 2022 Ford Escape SEL all-wheel drive, 26,975. Local you trust, pre-owned vehicles you can afford. Ray Varner Ford, built for the game.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
You're listening to The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
The internet is full of pictures of each and every one of you.
Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free.
Is there nothing you people can't do?
Also available on offthehooksports.com.
Oh, welcome back to the program with John Adams. I'm Dave Hooker. As we want to remind you that portions of the program are brought to you by our good friends at Work Trucks. We're going to talk Josh Heupel being an executioner, which I think he might be the next couple of weeks. Work Trucks, all about trucks that are actually available, trucks that help you maximize your profits by having the right work vehicle available now. Time is money. The perfect work vehicle doesn't break down, has all the space to carry what you need. That's what Work Trucks is intent on offering, while other dealerships just can't do it. Contracting is about time. Work Trucks saves you time with less back and forth trips and trucks that pass the highest standards to be put to work. The process is all quick and easy. And when you choose a vehicle from Work Trucks, got that NAPID work body installed. Work Truck supplies vehicles to people just like you, contractors. No dealership runaround. If you're a contractor, got to know Work Trucks with an X. Work Trucks with an X, LLC.com. Work Trucks with an X, LLC.com. Clinton Highway in Knoxville, downtown Birmingham. It's Work Trucks. Love you fit to a T. Proud supporter of the Tennessee Vols. John, what are the chances that Josh Heupel runs 2 coaches out of a job in Tennessee's next 2 games? Of course, I'm referring to one Sam Pittman, who we all love, at Arkansas because he's such a great man. And then Billy Napier, who's very detail-oriented, but appears in a little bit in over his head, at Florida. Josh Heupel has a propensity to embarrass coaches. Could he be the final straw in those two coaches' current tenures at their school?
I think that's possible, Dave. Sam Pittman up next is he has a tremendous record for losing close games. When you lose a lot of close games, you usually point to the coach. I mean, it seems like some of those you would pull out, but he's 6-16 with 6-16 in games decided by 8 points or fewer. Clock management isn't always one of his strengths, I don't think.
Probability is not one of his strengths.
Well, he's a likable guy, though. And if you see somebody you like and you just want to go give them millions of dollars, go for it. I'm sure it'll work out well.
I
think here's the thing. I mean, Josh Heupel and his offense have that kind of potential. You talk about a final straw kind of game where people just said, oh, my God, is this what we've come to? I mean, yeah, he loses all the close games, but what happens if he loses by 35 points? I could see that. And then Billy Napier, I'm still not 100% certain he will make it to Tennessee. If Florida loses to UCF after UCF just got hammered by Colorado, if suddenly he's 0-2 in the swamp against UCF and Miami, two in-state schools, isn't it time to pull the plug?
Yeah, but he's very detail-oriented.
Well, I know, but if he's...
I mean, that's all that everybody said about him. With Nick Saban, when he was hired, they said great defensive coach, coaches DBs. Josh Heupel, he's a good offensive coach. This is the same thing with Dooley. Like, what's your expertise being detail-oriented? So he takes good notes, and he's able to utilize Microsoft Outlook.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and say this up front. Billy Napier is more likely to get fired right after playing Josh Heupel than Sam Pittman. I think Arkansas fans really badly want Sam Pittman to work out, so they're going to give him every chance to try to turn this around.
Really?
I do. I know. Because, John, here's the thing, and there's two sides of being a head coach. There's being the great motivator that your kids want to play for, and then there's actually getting like the probabilities and clock management and basic in-game decisions right. Sam Pittman is like he scores 1,000 on one and scores like 0 on the other, and so I actually think that he'll have his kids wanting to play, trying their hardest against Tennessee. Whereas I think with Florida, the team has already quit on Billy Napier, so I think Tennessee could just light up Florida more than they even will Arkansas. And combined with the fact that, I think Florida is so ready to be done with Napier. So between the two, Josh Heupel might get both fired. But he's more likely to get Billy Napier fired the following Monday.
Well, do you agree, though, that there's a chance Napier doesn't make it to the Tennessee game?
I mean, I think Napier should beat UCF at home off a bye. As much,
well, he should, I think, but it's a toss-up game, so there's a chance he would lose. I just think if he loses another game in the swamp, that would be his third loss in the swamp in the first half of the season, and the tough part of his schedule is yet to come.
Okay, this is going to sound absurd, but that won't be the first time.
Not at all.
No, it's a 25-year history of that. But in the immediate future, which is the better job, Arkansas or Florida? Because Florida has administrative issues just like Tennessee had, and they hired Bullet Head because they had no other option because all the coaches turned them down. So my question to you, John, is right now in the immediate future, not once Florida gets its act together in 5 years, but right now, what's the better job?
I still think it's Florida. I'm not so sure that Arkansas had its NIL house in order when we started going to play for pay. because Arkansas has money. It's got some very well-heeled boosters, but I'm not seeing that evidence on the field. So I kind of wonder about that. I don't know. I don't have any inside info on that, how it's done, but that's just my general impression. I just think it's harder to get good players at Arkansas than it is at Florida. I don't think Florida is as good a job as some people think it is. If I were Lane Kiffin, for example, I would think long and hard before I left Ole Miss for Florida.
Why?
Because he's proved you can win at Ole Miss, and they have their NIL house in order. He's very effective going in the transfer portal. And if you can get the best players in Mississippi consistently, you can be really good. You don't have as many of them, but per capita, there's quite a few guys. If you could consistently beat Mississippi State by a wide margin, I think you can have a pretty potent team. And Kiffin's been able to get players from everywhere. The thing about Florida is everybody recruits in Florida. Every school in the country, just about, except maybe Kent State. I don't think Kent State recruits Florida. I'm kidding, Dave. Okay. I think it's a challenging job, and I agree with you. It's got an interim president. It's AD Scott Strickland. How secure is his job? He hired Dan Mullen.
He's gone. I mean, he's gone.
Well, that's what I think it would. Yeah, but see, I really think if Florida had its NIL act together, Dan Mullen comes in there, it would have fared much better. I mean, I think Florida would be much better off if it had Dan Mullen and a really viable NIL program than if it had Billy Napier and all those details that he worked out and all those people he hired for, okay, I want somebody cleaning the corners in every room. And then we're going to have somebody that goes to the main area of each room and clean that. We're going to be very specialized, and everybody needs to be good at their job.
Yeah, Florida's the better job, and you're right. It's because neither side really has their NIL house in order, and also Florida State and Miami stuck in the ACC with all the issues with the ACC is going to make it easier to recruit Florida. So even if they're not functionally run, they still have a better lock on the state than anybody else. In Arkansas, their top booster right now is Jerry Jones, and so he's like the most incompetent man in America right now. So I think that's going to give them problems too.
Yeah, listen, though, Jerry Jones, I don't know if he's the top booster or not, but if he decided to throw cash at that,
he would be too involved.
Okay, well, that's true. But he's almost dead, so that's fine. But Arkansas, could it be Ole Miss? Ole Miss, because it's had money thrown at it, and they throw money at players. Could they replicate that with a strong NIL? Fun, John.
If you had a strong, if you get the Saudis behind you, yeah, you can win big anywhere. I think Ole Miss. I do think Mississippi. It seems like it produces more great players than Arkansas does. A lot of great players have come out of Ole Miss. Jerry Wright out of Mississippi, not Ole Miss. What?
Yeah, but real quick timeout. You guys both have alluded to a lot of talent comes out of Mississippi, the state of Mississippi. Guys, I don't think that's the case. Not
per capita, no, it does.
Well, per capita, though, there's fewer people there.
I know, that's what I'm saying, though. If you can just corner the market in the state, I mean, you get some elite players. I mean, Marcus Dupree, Walter Payton, Jerry Rice, Brett Favre all come to mind.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I just I've covered recruiting and deep into Mississippi in the junior college ranks, and I think there's 10 or 12 guys that anybody would want any year, but I think you've got to recruit elsewhere. Now, Lane's done a great job of being able to overcome that in the transfer portal and NIL. Hound Dogs of Knoxville, champions look good in orange right there on Kingston Pike. The link is down below, hdknoxville.com, hdknoxville.com. Leads us to the last look, brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. And it is Caleb's favorite and John's favorite, perhaps my favorite as well. Football IQ, as some coaches are not the brightest bulb in the drawer. Where do you want to start, John Adams? I'm sorry, Caleb Calhoun.
All right, let's go to number 5 on this, and it's our old buddy Hugh Freeze. And Auburn has a 21-10 lead. They have it 1st and 10 at the Oklahoma 33-yard line. It is 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter. They're running it well. Don't put the ball in the air, given all the interceptions you've thrown this year. Just run it 3 times and then punt it. Because Oklahoma's offense was so bad, they're not going to score 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. But Hugh Freeze decides, let me throw it twice, 2 incompletions. Then he tries a 50-yard field goal, misses. Oklahoma goes down and scores, and then that results in the pick 6. So Hugh Freeze is the first fail.
All right. I didn't have as much a problem with that one, John. You?
Yeah, I have a problem with Hugh Freeze in general right now. Well, if you notice that on the sidelines, it seems like Hugh Freeze's face is as red as Butch Jones's was, and I don't remember it. I don't remember it being that way. And if he goes to purple like Butch was capable of doing, I think that will be the final straw for Auburn.
All right, Caleb, who's next? I think we've got some worse coaching decisions than that.
Oh, we got some good ones coming up. This was college football's in full swing because it was a great weekend of mismanaged clock. One was a PJ Fleck at Minnesota. Guys, Minnesota, everybody's talking about that failed onside kick that the Big Ten is now changing the rules on at the end. But the only reason Minnesota didn't get the ball back there is because in the third quarter, PJ Fleck burned a timeout, not to challenge a play, but because it wanted more time to argue with the refs over the fact that it should be 2nd and 9 and not 2nd and 12.
You suck.
Yeah. Just take him out and beat him. I mean, just yeah. What? And see, I hate to stay on this Butch Jones theme, but I can't help it. I mean, PJ from the get-go has reminded me of Butch Jones.
He is.
He's a little more polished.
Got the tie.
Better haircut.
Yeah,
but who doesn't?
He doesn't have hair, does he?
No, he doesn't. But that's Dave's point, I think. He was, he's just he's very active on the sidelines. And he likes doing that so much. That's probably why he called the timeout, so he can be more active and chew out an official.
Which cost them at the end, because they would have gotten the ball back with about 50 seconds to go and a field goal to tie had he not done that.
How long has he been in Minnesota now? It seems like he's like 7 years or something.
Some of those dudes like in that area, like Kirk Ferentz, signed like seemingly lifetime contracts.
Yeah,
I know. If you notice with so many of those Big Ten schools, it's like coaches come and go. The team is always the same.
I know.
Its strengths are the same, and its weaknesses are the same.
Yep. Last look. All right. More coaching IQ brought to you by Campbell Cunningham Taylor Knott.
To visit cctis.com. The information you need is easy to access, and setting an appointment is as simple as clicking the tab. Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn and Eye Care Optical at cctis.com. Simply the best.
All right, who's next? Caleb on Football IQ. Hit like and subscribe. We greatly appreciate that. Make sure to ring that bell so the notifications are on. Caleb?
I think John knows where I'm going with this one because I'm sure he saw the game, but Sam Pittman and the brilliant third quarter decision to it's 4th down and he doesn't know whether or not he wants to kick a field goal or go for it. So both personnel come out. So he has to take a timeout, and coming out of the timeout, he calls a fake field goal that didn't get it.
That's crazy.
that you talk about, you notice how really bad coaches have a tendency to overthink things. And I think by doing that, they think they're being smarter. I'm not going to do the obvious thing here. I'm going to think of something else to do. Yeah, well, that's why you're a bad coach. But they don't think that. So, yeah, how many fake field goals do you see anymore? I mean, isn't that about extinct? It's just a hard play to pull off. I know Les Miles did it, and we won't go into Les Miles, but I just think about it. How many fake field goals to me are hard to pull off? And I was shocked when Arkansas did that.
Hey, real quick, if you don't care, I see SC Scout guy who just got his power back after the hurricane. I want to take a quick moment, and we're having fun here, but our prayers and thoughts are to everybody that's been affected by that terrible, terrible storm. So I'm glad you're back with us, and all those that have been without power or that have suffered incredible losses. You're in our thoughts and prayers, certainly. All right, Caleb. I want to get to that, but first, guys, who would be the worst coach in the SEC right now? Because it's not Clark Lee at Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's coach usually holds that designation.
That's why Vanderbilt. Oh, I think it's you got to go with Billy Napier, don't you?
Okay, but see, here's the problem. I would actually go with Sam Pittman because I think he's so likable. He's hard to fire.
Dave, I don't think he's as hard to fire as you make him out to be.
Well, why is he still there?
I mean, he'd have to start if he starts giving money to fans. Maybe they'll want to keep him around. But I just think personality. I don't see him as a charismatic personality. He's likable, I guess. Yeah. But I don't think Billy Napier's unlikable.
Bro. No, it's because he never forgets your birthday. Because he's detail-oriented. Who is the worst coach in the SEC? Billy Napier, Sam Pittman? I'm putting that on the poll. Anybody else should be up there?
I got to think about that. But, Hugh Freeze right now is on there, and Shane Beamer.
Okay. All right. I like those. I still think my first two options are the best.
Okay, so guys, this is some great clock mismanagement you guys are going to see for the end of this. But number 2 is I don't know if you watched that Virginia Tech Miami game Friday night. Everybody's freaked out about the Hail Mary. But Brent Pry's genius at Virginia Tech in the first half was on display. Virginia Tech was going to try a field goal at the end of the half, and they did. But Brent Pry decided to burn the timeout with 25 seconds left when he could have run it all the way down to 1 second and kick the field goal. But he decided to burn the timeout at 25 seconds and give Miami a chance to get back and get a field goal on their own. Not only did they do that, but they got a little more help from Brent Pry, who decided to squib kick it after making the field goal, which set Miami up for a field goal at the end of the half. If he just runs the clock down to 1 second and kicks the field goal, Miami doesn't get a chance.
Did you see an explanation for that other than I'm not very bright?
I don't think he knew if he wanted to try the field goal or not, so he wanted a timeout to think about it.
You suck.
Yes, you did. Yeah.
And then my favorite, and this is a guy Tennessee almost hired. Did y'all see Jeff Brom's clock mismanagement on that final drive with Louisville against Notre Dame over the weekend? Louisville had the ball down 31-24 at midfield. It was 1st and 10. It was 3 minutes left. They ran 3 plays, and Jeff Brom ran the clock down to 59 seconds, and including pulling up getting a delay of game on 4th and 1 because he ran the play clock all the way down all 40 seconds off the play clock on a 4th and 1, which brought up a 4th and 6 when Louisville needed a touchdown to win with 3 minutes to go.
And he's supposed to be an offensive guru.
Yes.
The problem is he's not detail oriented. Portions of the program.
I don't know how likable he is.
I'll tell you what, if you had to hug an SEC coach, wouldn't it be Sam Pittman, though? Portions of the program brought to you by Heating and Air Conditioning, 50 years in East Tennessee. Integrity matters. Don't trust a fly-by-night HVAC company to tell you that you need a new unit that could cost thousands or more. CityHeatandAir.com. CityHeatandAir.com. John Adams brought to you by Neubert Collision Center. They're fantastic people. For over 50 years, Neubert Collision Center has been East Tennessee's best choice for quality repair work and fantastic customer service. Joe Neubert Collision right down below. John, anything you would like to add as the Vols head towards Arkansas, such as perhaps a game prediction, since we won't visit with you until then?
Well, you were throwing out a lot of names and titles for Josh Heupel. I call him Coach Over.
Coach Over.
Coach Over, because he's always over the spread.
He has. That's a good point.
Yeah. And so let's get back to my closing thought. Let's get back to Billy Napier. If he's so detail-oriented, why does his hair look the way it does?
I don't know. And
Has he
with
taught
that kind of hair? Shouldn't you have a long beard too?
I will. Yes, I think that I've made some decent predictions, but I will say none is better than Billy Napier was an absolute goofball the moment he was hired. And I think that people were excited in Gainesville at the time, but I think that's proven to be true. John, would you like to speak to my prediction prowess in general?
Yeah, I don't think of you as a great predictor, but I mean, maybe you're getting better at it. You were talking about earlier about what was going on with you when you were 18. Maybe you've gotten better. So that's good. Great prediction, Dave. Great.
Has Billy Napier taught shower discipline yet, though? Remember when Derek Dooley had to teach that?
I missed.
You know what?
I was at that Dooley one, and I have to be honest with you, John. And I was an employee of yours at the time. I spaced out as to how absurd that was, because I'm sitting there, and I know we're keeping you long, and I'm sorry, but I remember that moment like it was yesterday, and I'm thinking, I don't even know how to write this, and I really just kind of was going to cast it aside as this isn't even news. But I think Austin ended up writing it. But there were times, I admit, I spaced out during Derek Dooley talking.
Yeah, I really think if Butch probably would have had shower discipline too, but he just mentally he couldn't come up with that. I mean, I can imagine Butch just sitting around and thinking, what kind of weird idea I could come up with. There's something that nobody talks about. Okay, you got to sleep right. You got to get your sleep down.
Yeah,
he came up with that, but he copies everything, and other coaches have done that. But yeah, and I wonder if Billy Napier instruct his players in hair care. Here's how you should wear your hair, guys.
Yes, Caleb.
I mean, Butch did say one time that you can even have a mental rep if you don't take an actual rep. So maybe he taught his players how to take a mental shower.
The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. For John Adams and Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.